Can you all wave to the camera, please? And then this is my ID, and this is my note card. Okay, ready, everyone? So, you know how we all have those topics that you can't talk about at family gatherings, whether it be religion, race, ethnicity, literally anything that can bring up touchy subjects, emotions. You're not supposed to talk about them. It's a well known fact. One of those topics would be abortion. And today we're going to be talking about why abortion should be legalized in the US and everywhere in the world, how it affects young women today, and why it's so important that it's legalized. Hopefully, this will be a lot easier conversation than the ones that you have at your family gatherings. An interesting statistic would be that 78,000 women die for unsafe abortions every year, and an estimated 20 million worldwide. That's according to the National Library of Medicine. And it's really interesting because you can see how many women die, and it's due to unsafe abortions, not abortions in general. Abortions in general actually help women and are able to provide needed medical care. There are three main causes or reasons why women need abortion. Those would be unsafe sexual practices such as rape or sexual assault. Um, it could also be because somebody can't financially afford a baby and it has detriment to society and to underprivileged people, or because some women's bodies just aren't simply meant to hold a baby and they have other medical issues that would harm them if they did hold a baby to term. So I think the best way to help you understand why legalizing abortion is so important would be to visualize yourself in the following scenarios I'm about to give you. The first one is very hard to talk about, and it was said by a CNN reporter that a 65-year-old man in Ohio, raped a 10-year-old girl, and unfortunately, she became pregnant. And due to Ohio's laws, she wasn't able to have an abortion. So she had to carry the baby to term because she had no other options because it was either that or to have an unsafe abortion, which either way wouldn't really help anyone in that scenario. And unfortunately, her and the baby both died. So that's just one example of obviously that hurts her community, her family, and had she simply been allowed to have that abortion, none of this would have happened. The second would be if you can't afford it. So abortions actually, the delegalizing of abortions actually hurts the underprivileged community detrimentally because it's more likely for rape or for criminal acts of sexual assault to happen in these underprivileged communities. And if they're not able to have an abortion, it's just something else that they have to financially take care of when they're already struggling to take care of themselves. And a study by NPR actually found that women who find themselves in these circumstances and are from these underprivileged communities and are either raped or have a baby that they know they can't take care of and aren't able to get an abortion, either die from having an unsafe abortion or they have the baby and they can't financially take care of it or provide for it, and it just ends up growing up in an underprivileged community and getting into gang violence or not being able to to live like a healthy and full life. The third would be that someone isn't healthy enough. So it was actually a woman in Texas who had cancer, and CNN did another study about it showing that she was absolutely heartbroken because she wasn't, due to Texas abortion regulations, she wasn't able to have an abortion. So she had to carry the baby to term, and it came out with several heart defects and birth defects. And she eventually, a couple years later, died um, from having problems from the surgery that she had to have the baby. So it just goes to show, like, all of these really, really hard facts show why abortion should be illegal, because banning abortion doesn't ban abortion. It ultimately just bans safe abortions because people will either look to other sources to get unsafe abortions or they'll have babies that their body just fully can't handle. Um, it's really hard, but the most important part in these types of scenarios and with touchy subjects like this is to just visualize yourself in these situations or your loved ones. Imagine if it was your family member, your friend who was raped or had to go through like hard situations and have a baby that they know they can't or shouldn't be having. If you look at the PowerPoint on slide 4, it shows that 45% of unsafe abortions happen within the US itself, but 95% of unsafe abortions happen worldwide. So it just kind of goes to show how big of a population in America unsafe abortions have, but then even further to go and show that, again, banning abortion and giving stricter terms on abortion, it doesn't take away the practice. It just leads to unsafer ways to go through these things. And if you look at the statistics that say 95% of unsafe abortions in underdeveloped countries um, are what lead to deaths for women, it's a lot harder because women, when they aren't able to have an abortion in America because of these laws, they ultimately go to underdeveloped countries because that's the only way that they would be afforded that right and that medical care. And since they are underdeveloped countries and they're not able to provide the medical care that they need to be, they still ultimately don't. They have several problems from surgeries or from the abortion, and they end up dying. So I think the main um, point to remember when thinking about all of these things and all of the emotion that comes into this debate is that abortion isn't something that should be talked about or debated. It's just like a human right to have that type of medical care because at the end of the day, we've seen the statistics, we've seen how many people are affected by this, and it doesn't take away the problem. It just creates a bigger problem because more people have to go to unsafe abortions. So if you guys have any questions, now would be the time to ask.
So how do you recommend navigating those difficult conversations with people who don't agree about abortions?
So I think that the first step in any of these like touchy emotional subjects, but especially this one, would be education. It's very easy to see how, from a religious aspect or any other aspect, how people wouldn't necessarily support abortion, but it's also important to remind them and educate them about how banning abortion only bans safe abortions realistically, and how many people are having like how many people are being raped or how many people are being sexually assaulted and being forced to have babies that they don't necessarily want.
Okay, well, that leads perfectly into my second question, which is what is the best way that you recommend educating yourself or guiding other people through educating themselves on this topic?
So, unfortunately, I think the best way to really get the message through is to read um, personal stories. So, the story that I read the most would be about the 10-year-old girl who got raped and eventually had to have that baby. I think stories like that show emotion and like really have other people to like have sympathy and empathy for people going through these difficult situations make the conversation a lot easier because it's more of a human rights it makes it more of a human rights issue than just of like a what you believe in issue, if that makes sense. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
So I have a question. As far as the insurance carriers, what is their medical, like their standpoint as far as covering abortions if they are legal?
So since now most abortion is legal in almost every state in the US, most insurances don't cover it whatsoever, and in the states or counties that abortion is legal, um, insurances usually deem it as an a surgery you opt for, not one that's necessary. So even then, it kind of depends on the insurance company, but most of them don't take it as well. Which is why it's like a bigger issue now because a lot of people, especially in like those underdeveloped cities, even if they are able to have an abortion if they most of the times can't afford it anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys so much for watching my presentation. I hope you learned.